Hi everyone, welcome back. This week in class we talk about one of my favorite elements that is covered in the class, and it's that of your physical environment. And what I really love about studying the physical environment is that most of us don't think about it when we think of nonverbal communication. So a lot of us don't think about things like color and decor and heat, temperature outside, the weather as being things that can impact the way that we communicate with others. And so this is usually one of my favorite um, topics to cover, and we usually get a lot of really good discussion out of it as well. So a couple of things to think about this week. In this week's discussion board, I show you a video from overseas about the use of pink in a prison setting to calm inmates down. And then I ask you to sort of think about whether or not you agree with that in your discussion board. And so your discussion board this week asks about whether or not color control or color correction is an appropriate thing to use in prison. And I want to give a little disclaimer here because people have very, very strong opinions about the penal system in the United States and abroad. But this discussion board is often one of the best in the class, but it can also get kind of heated. So I want you to be very cognizant of that. I want you to be respectful of your classmates. You don't have to agree with them, that's fine, but do be super careful about your responses so that you're not being deliberately insulting or rude, because I will not be happy with that. So that is your discussion board this week, and that's kind of one of the bigger elements of this. But some fun facts that go along with the environment, things that are not necessarily mentioned in your book. So color is super, I can't say it enough. Color is so interesting. It's so interesting. In Arizona, here's an example. I went to school in Arizona. This is not pink prison. I'm good at talking. It's my thing in life. Sorry. Okay. At the University of Arizona, everywhere you go, at the library, by the dorms, in the student union building, there's purple benches, purple staircases, whatever. Which, okay, it's lovely. But Arizona's colors are blue and red, right? So why are they using purple? Not because it's a combination of the two, although if you guess that, you're very ahead of the game. It's because purple is linked to memory retention. So the idea is that if you study in an area with purple around you, you're more likely to remember what you studied, right? So there are things about color in terms of eating. So if you think about any fast food restaurants, McDonald's, In-N-Out, Taco Bell, Burger King, Wendy's, the two main colors that you'll find are red and yellow, right? And this is because red and yellow have been shown to stimulate the appetite. So much so, in fact, that people who have red kitchens have on average, or they eat on average, about 400 more calories per day than people with like a neutral colored kitchen. So that's really interesting. You'll often find red and yellow in eating disorder treatment facilities because the idea is that they're trying to stimulate appetite. So that's pretty interesting. Things that are packaged in green tend to sell more because people associate them with being more natural, even though it's just in a package. So if you put Oreos in a green box, they're going to sell more than Oreos in a blue box, which is actually the color that Oreos come in. So I don't know why I gave that example. But so that's just some extra fun facts. Other things, we don't often think of our houses as being communicative elements of us, right? But they are, they totally are. So I always say that I don't really know a person until I see their house, because how messy you are, how clean you are, the colors you use, what you choose to display, how you choose to arrange furniture, what the focal point is in each room. All of those things, tell me something about you as a person. And so I always think that's really interesting. And so when I go to friends' houses, I'm always kind of looking like, okay, what do I see here that I didn't see before? Seating arrangements. In a traditional classroom setting, there's something that's called kind of a splash zone. And the splash zone is like the arc directly in front of wherever it is I'm standing. And it's called the splash zone because those are the people that are more likely to get called upon in class. Those are also the people that are more likely to want to be called upon, right? So they're sitting in the front row, they're usually more participative, etc. In an online class, I can't just kind of pick you out of a crowd and call on you, right? But there's definitely still an element of, okay, when do you realize that? Like you're sitting somewhere on purpose, right? In a face-to-face class, like what motivates you to do that? And if it's just space constraints, then that's one thing. But if you're choosing to sit on the outskirts because you know that you're less likely to get called on, then that's an interesting thing to be aware of as well. Americans in particular, but most people, I don't know why my voice got like 13-year-old boy right there, but it totally did. But Americans in particular have really funny expectations about privacy. Like we think that when we are driving in our cars that no one can see us, which, I mean, like windows are literally made out of glass. You can see in them. So this expectation of privacy is just silly to me because we tend to get embarrassed if we feel like we've been caught. So you'll see people like putting on makeup or eating or car dancing or picking their nose or doing all sorts of weird stuff because they think people can't see them. It's weird. It's a weird thing to think. So if I'm driving down the freeway and I'm car dancing and we pull up at a stoplight and I notice that you're giving me like pretty hard side eye, I'm embarrassed. And it's not because I'm a bad car dancer, because I'm not a bad car dancer. I am completely adequate, if not slightly above average in the car dancing realm. So, but it's because you caught me, right? And I thought I was like by myself, getting my groove on, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And I didn't even like offer to let you lead. So really it's about manners. It's just about manners. The one thing that your book doesn't cover that I wish it did is the use of time as a communicative element. And this is its own subset of nonverbal communication, and it's called chronemics. So in chronemics, it's a power situation, right? So time in America is money, and money is power. So if I am trying to get a job and I show up 30 minutes late to an interview, do they have to see me? No. I mean, they can, but they don't have to. But if your interviewer comes out 30 minutes late, are you going to be like, never mind, you were late? Probably not, because they have something that you want, and that's the job. The same idea that when I was in school, there was sort of this unwritten rule that if a teacher hadn't showed up after like 10 minutes, you could just leave, right? Because they weren't showing up. That's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. It's not a policy anywhere. So if I wanted to show up 20 minutes late to a face-to-face class and give a quiz for full credit, I could do that without any consequence to me because I have something that you want. And in this case, it's the points for that quiz or points for participation, or it's knowledge because we love to learn. So I have knowledge that you want. I don't know. But this is why there's kind of an element of people that get really annoyed when someone's like, I'm fashionably late. Like, no, that's rude. That means that you think your time is more valuable than mine, or that you have somewhere better to be than where I have to be. And so people can kind of get rubbed the wrong way on the fashionably late thing. But so those are just a couple of elements that I want you to think about as we move through the material in this part of the class. So go home tonight and think about what your house what it says about you. All right, I will be in touch soon. Thanks.